right. Well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Gorowski, and I'll be your host for today. Jam-packed December coming your way before the holiday season. We've probably got 20 to 25 live events on the go, connecting with scientists, explorers, adventurers, and conservationists from all over the world. If you visit the site, exploringbytheseat.com, you can find all the events that are coming up there. Register for your classroom to jump in a camera spot, tune in live, or even check out the event afterwards via YouTube. Now, December is always a fun month. For the last several years, we have celebrated big cats, connecting with big cat explorers and scientists and researchers, conservationists from all over the world. And we are doing so again this month. And we always like to make sure we don't leave out our North American big cats. It's easy to sometimes forget about them when we think about the big cats in Africa, India, or South America. So to help us do that today, I'm really excited to have Malia Byrtus joining us. She is a conservationist and Florida native focused on connecting diverse audiences to nature through exploration and storytelling. So she began working for Path of the Panther in 2017 as an intern while completing her master's degree in exploration science from the University of Miami. Since 2019, she's been the field program manager for Path of the Panther, overseeing their extensive network of remote wildlife camera traps throughout the greater Everglades ecosystem. I'm going to bring Malia in with us now. Here we go. Hey, Malia, how are we doing today?
Hi, really good. How are you?
Good. It's great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've got a great group of classrooms from Canada and the US hanging out with us, and I have a feeling they're going to have a lot of questions for you.
Great. I'm excited.
All right. Well, the floor is yours. I'll let you take over for a bit.
Alrighty. Well, I'm so excited to talk to all of you today. I know that you all are all across the country and even in Canada, so I'm really excited to talk to you about my home state and the really cool places that I get to work. And so I'm going to share my screen, and so I can share with you my map and where I'm located. Let's see here. There we go. And then I'll pull up my presentation here. Can you all see that okay? All right.
Good.
All right. Well, so I am located in Florida, all the way down at the very bottom of the state, near the Florida Everglades. And if you've never been to the Florida Everglades, it's what we call a wetland or a swamp. And even though the Everglades National Park is all the way down here at the very end of the state, all of Florida can actually be considered a wetland. The state of Florida is very, very dependent on clean water. And fun fact, we actually, as Floridians, get our drinking water right from beneath the ground in what we call the aquifer. So down here is where I get to work. And I get to work in all of these really cool swamps like this. And what I'm holding is a camera trap, and this is what we're going to talk a little bit about today. And this is one of my favorite places I get to work. And as you can see, it's filled with water. And so a little bit about me. I'm a conservationist, and to me that means that I just really, really care about protecting the things that I love. And to me, that means nature and these places that I get to explore. And as an explorer, I get to spend a lot of time outside and seeing new places and new animals and just being curious about the natural world around me. And really anyone can be an explorer. You can look out your own backyard or your window in your room and see what birds are flying by. So being an explorer is, I think, really, really important. And a wildlife camera trapper is what we're mainly going to talk about today, and a really cool animal called the Florida panther. But first, I want to share another really cool picture of another swamp that I get to work in. And a lot of people may think that a place like this filled with dark water and alligators and snakes and spiders is scary. But to me, these places are some of the most beautiful places I've ever seen in the world. And I think it's really important to show these places to people who have maybe never seen them before, or maybe won't get to see them. But I think it's important that we show these places to connect people with them so that more people are inspired to protect swamps like this for not just all the animals and the plants that live there, but also for people too. And so the organization I work for is called Path of the Panther. And a lot of people actually don't know that we have panthers or big cats in the state of Florida. And we do. And unfortunately, they are an endangered species. There's actually less than 200 of these animals left here in Florida. And they're a wide-ranging territorial animal, which means they need a lot of room to roam, to breed and make babies, to hunt. And they're a really important predator. They're actually what we call an umbrella species, which means that basically if we're able to protect the panther and protect the habitat that it needs, we're actually also protecting a bunch of other animals as well. And we're going to talk about those really cool other animals too. But first I want to talk about, why is the panther an endangered animal? Well, in Florida, actually, panthers struggle to survive because of a lot of the things that we as humans have done in the state, mainly destroying a lot of the habitat that the panthers need by building neighborhoods and roads and malls. So in this picture, you can see here how big roads like this that cut between natural forested areas, when the panthers are trying to get from one area to the next, a lot of them unfortunately get hit by cars. And so one thing that my team works on is a solution called the Florida Wildlife Corridor, which is a really cool thing because if you see on this map here, all these dark green areas that are woven and connected together, these are all protected lands that when they're connected, animals such as the panther and other animals like black bears can go from one part of the state all the way up to another part of the state. And these green spaces are actually made of all kinds of areas like parks and ranches and farms. And so the Florida Wildlife Corridor actually not only benefits animals, but it actually benefits us as people too, because we're ultimately protecting our clean water and our farms and ranches that provide food and heritage for us as well. And so the Path of the Panther and the Florida Wildlife Corridor actually protects not just the panther, but all these really cool other animals too. We've got my favorite, the Florida black bear, bobcat, white-tailed deer, sandhill crane, raccoons, and alligators. And there's so much more. Florida is a very biodiverse place, which means there's so many plants and animals. And all of these images were actually captured by a camera trap. And so if some of you don't know what a camera trap is, they are really, really cool camera systems that are actually hidden in the forest. So for my job, what I get to do is I get to hide all these cameras in the woods where the animals actually are able to take their own picture. So how do we do this? Well, the cameras have a technology that basically sets up an invisible tripwire, an invisible beam, where the animals, when they walk through that beam, actually trigger the camera and take their own picture or video. And so these are really cool to use because it allows us to better understand these animals in their natural habitat without ever even being there or disturbing them. So we get to learn a lot about their behavior, their movements, all sorts of really cool things. And so here's one picture that I wanted to share of the panther. And as you can see, it's at night. And so we actually set up all these hidden lights in the trees and everything to make this beautiful picture to show people that panthers are here in Florida and they're still surviving through all of the struggles that they have in our state. And then the next picture I wanted to share is of a Florida black bear crawling beneath a fence. And this is actually a really good representation of what the Florida Wildlife Corridor does. And so on one side of the fence is actually Big Cypress National Preserve, which is a protected park. And then where the bear is crawling to is a protected private ranch land. So this is a good example of how all those pieces of land are connected to allow bears to travel safely throughout the state. And then the next one is actually a video of a bear and a panther traveling beneath a wildlife underpass. So this is a way to where animals can actually travel safely beneath those highways that we were talking about. And this was all captured with a camera trap. And then the next one is actually going to be a video of bears who actually are very curious and like to mess with the camera traps as well. So sometimes I have to deal with this. The bears are super curious. They like things that smell different in their environment, and they will a lot of times mess with the camera equipment. And I have to go there and pick everything up and set it all up. So sometimes I don't hide them as much as I should. And then the very last picture is of me just having a lot of fun with the cameras. I get to just enjoy my time in these beautiful places and sometimes take my own pictures like this. And it's so much fun. And I'm really excited to see any questions that you guys might have about Florida or any of the animals that I get to see on the cameras or camera traps even. So I'm going to toss it over to you guys. I will stop sharing my screen as well.
All right. Very cool. Well, Malia, that's absolutely amazing. It's such a cool project, and using those camera traps to kind of peer into the lives of these secretive animals that we don't usually see otherwise. It looks like some pretty crazy working conditions as well, making your way through the swamps and finding your way through there. What are some of the biggest challenges you face?
Yeah, that's a big one. Is Florida is such a not only diverse in different landscapes, but the weather fluctuates here a lot. So we have a wet and a dry season here. So half the year these places will be dry, but then the other half, in some of those pictures you saw, I'm walking waist deep in water. So it presents a lot of challenges when you're working with technology like cameras. You have to keep those cameras dry, and when bears come by, that's another challenge, because when bears will knock over equipment, sometimes the equipment's damaged, or sometimes I can easily fix things again. But those are just some of the few challenges. And also, of course, there's mosquitoes. It's hot outside, but all that is so worth it to me.
All right. Well, I've got a little Kahoot quiz queued up here. I pulled a few little facts, a few little questions from your presentation today. So we're going to put our classrooms to the test and see how well. I can see some of them running for their computer devices there. So I am going to pop up a banner here. There we go. Kahoot.it is where you're going to want to visit. And it's going to ask you for a PIN number. And lucky for you, I have one of those PIN numbers handy. I'm going to share that on the screen shortly. If you are in your classroom with one-to-one technology, that's awesome. You can use that at your seat. If not, your teacher could pull it up at the front of the room and you can shout out your answers. If you can't join via tech, just play along and shout out your answers as well. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen here. Should be coming up now. There we go. And let's bring that Kahoot in and see what our PIN number is for today. All right, there it is. 447618 is going to be our PIN number for today. We'll give a couple moments here for classrooms to join us, whether it's teachers, individual educators. Let's see what we get here. Amelia, while we wait for a few students to join us, I just want to touch on this. I think your master's degree in exploration science is pretty darn amazing. That just sounds like the perfect career but for students to be thinking about and get passionate about and looking into.
Absolutely. It was a lot of fun because it combines so many different things. For me, I came from a very sciencey background. So I already knew a lot about the environment and biology. But what I really wanted to learn was, how do we translate this science and communicate it to people in a really engaging and interesting way? So the camera traps was a really big part of my studies. And it allowed me to explore a bunch of different places. So exploration science, I think, is a really interesting field of study for students to check out.
All right. Very cool. Well, as you can see, we've got over 140 students joining us already in the quiz, which is great. We're looking forward to seeing who comes out on top. So yeah, let's get things going. 20 seconds for each question. You get the answer right, you get points. You get it right quickly, you get even more points. You get it wrong, but very fast, well, we got nothing. So let's see what happens here. So first question, most of Florida can be considered forest, wetland, swamp, desert, or grassland? Who was paying attention right at the beginning when we had that little intro into the Florida ecosystem? 5 more seconds. All right. Most of our students went with wetland swamp. A pretty good start. Let's see who's on top right now. Alex. Alex is holding down that top spot. Let's jump to our next question. The Florida Wildlife Corridor is made up of parks, farms, ranches, or all of the above. A couple more seconds on the clock there. All right, 104 students went with all of the above. That is absolutely the correct answer. We've had a big shift here. Neela has taken the lead on our leaderboard, but anything can happen. We've got one more question. Malia, before we jump to that last question, your camera traps, I imagine they're not just right out in the parks. Do you have them on ranch land as well, ranches and farms?
Yes, we have them on all different types of properties. So we'll have them not just in parks, but ranches and farms too. We're actually about to set up some new ones on some new farms. So I'm excited about that. All
right, very cool. Our final question coming up. Umbrella species, what does this mean? They don't like the rain, they're aquatic. If you protect that species, you protect a lot of others, or they're found only in one place in the world.
It's a good question.
Last couple seconds. All right. We tricked a few students, but most went with protect the species, and you protect a lot of other species as well. And then that last one, only found in one place, that's endemic if it's only found in one place in the world. Very cool. Let's check out our podium. In third spot, we've got Matthew. Good stuff, Matthew. Second place, Senor 745. And in first place, Neela held on to that top spot. All right. Always fun to play Kahoot. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. That was a great group. And let's jump into a little Q&A action now. Oops. There we go. Okay. So we are going to visit some camera classrooms. If you're tuning in live via YouTube, of course, use that comment section and send us in some questions. But for now, let's get started. Let's go to Maine. Let's go to Miss Whipple's crew. They're hanging out with us. There's some fourth graders. I'm going to bring them in now. There they are. Hey, Maine, how are we doing this morning?
All right, kiddos. Sorry.
Crew, that's okay.
Yeah, just hammer.
Hi, my name is Arlene, and I have a question for you. How long have you been working with panthers?
So I've been working to capture photos and videos of panthers for the last 3 years. And it's been a lot of fun. And, you know, I don't always get pictures of panthers. Sometimes it takes me a really long time to get a picture of one on the camera because they're so rare. But when I do, it's like opening up a Christmas present. I feel so excited when I get to see a panther, and it's been really awesome getting to learn more about them.
All right. Great question to get us started, and hopefully we'll have time to visit for a follow-up to our crew in Maine. But for now, let's jump to a new location. Let's go to California. We've got some third graders hanging out with us in California with Mr. Barcina's crew. Let me bring them in now. There they are. Hey, California.
How do panthers eat?
That's a good question. Panthers are actually predators and carnivores, so they are really big hunters. So some of the things that they like to eat the most are white-tailed deer. We also have invasive hogs here in Florida that they like to eat, and all other types of small mammals and rodents like raccoons and armadillos and stuff like that.
All right. We'll come back your way, California. I am going to grab a question here. Where should we go now? Let's go to Virginia. We've got some seventh graders hanging out in Virginia with us with Miss Deer. I'm going to bring them back in now. There they are.
Yeah, here we are. Hey there. I have a question from Riley, and Riley would like to know, at what age did you know you wanted to do this kind of work?
That's a really good question, too. So, growing up here in Florida, I actually grew up near the beach where I would surf and kayak and snorkel. So, I really loved the natural world at a really early age. And so, in school, I think I kind of always knew that I wanted to know more about the ocean and know more about the forest. And so, when I actually went to college, I knew right away that's what I wanted to study. But what I didn't know is that I was actually going to still be working in my home state of Florida and actually be working to protect some of these areas that I grew up loving. So it's been really, really fun and exciting.
And I think that is just a great kind of point right there, is if you can find something you're passionate about and curious about right now and turn it into a career. And then, I mean, looking at the pictures, it doesn't look like your job's work every day. It looks like there's a lot of fun mixed in there as well, and that your job's just a lot of fun in general.
It is, yes.
All right. Where should we go now? Let's go to Arlington. Some third graders hanging out with us in Arlington with Mrs. Wallach. Let's bring them in live now. There they are. Hey, third graders.
Hello. We have a question, a follow-up question for you from Ollie and Hayden. How did you become a panther conservationist?
That's a really good question. So I started working with taking pictures and videos of panthers just by caring about the places where they live. So I ultimately started just being a conservationist here in Florida and caring about all parts of the environment and ecosystem. But what's really cool about the panther, kind of what we talked about, how they're an umbrella species, is that if we are able to protect the panther, then we're able to protect almost everything here in Florida. And so it's been really important for us to show people how special this animal is and show them how rare it is. And so the cameras are the best way to do that.
All right. And then I imagine, so, you know, we saw pictures of the bears. We saw pictures of panthers. I'm sure there's deer and other animals that are captured. Do you ever catch people when they're out hiking? And do you ever catch them making funny faces at the cameras?
That's a really good question. Yes. So we have had cameras set up in parks where people are walking their dogs or hiking with their families. And so I have had a bunch of really funny photos of people making funny faces or leaving a note for me that says hi on the cameras. And so that's been something that's really fun and engaging with the public too.
All right. Very cool. Well, it's definitely important to have that public buy-in, especially from the ranchers and the farmers who make up part of that corridor. All right. Bringing in another crew here. We've got Sprinklers class hanging out with us, grades 6, 7, and 8. How are we doing today? I'm actually looking at the room. Like Mr. Shattuck's crew as well is in there too. So joining us from Ontario.
Is there certain seasons panthers come out?
So panthers are active actually year round. But you can see them actually, well, I should speak more on the cameras. I see them on the cameras more during the wet season because where we put our cameras, we usually put them in areas that are a little bit more dry. And panthers, being cats, they actually like to avoid water at most possible. So they're usually walking on those dry areas where we have our cameras. So I tend to see them a little bit more in the wet season. But they're active year round, but they also do like to travel more in the dawn, dusk, and nighttime periods of the day. They're not very active during those high heat afternoon hours.
All right. Lots of great questions coming in from our classrooms today. Who haven't we visited yet? Here we go. We got to go to New Jersey. Some fifth graders hanging out with Mrs. Dottie. Let me bring them into the call. There they are. Hey, New Jersey. Can you grab the mic for me? It's still on mute.
My
There we go.
question is, do you tag the panthers?
So I actually do not tag them myself, but there are a team of biologists here in Florida that actively tag some of the panthers here and actually use a collar technology to where that anywhere the panther moves, the biologist will actually go up in an airplane and use radio telemetry technology to monitor where some of these animals are moving, which is really neat. And I've actually been lucky enough to be on one of those airplanes and see how they do it. But I have not yet been with the biologist when they actually tag them. That'd be something really cool for me to see.
All right. So we're going to do another fast round. We're going to visit our classrooms again for a follow-up question because we have the time. I do want to grab one quickly here via YouTube. And this question is, you know, do you encounter much resistance from, say, ranchers or, you know, other people using the land? Or is it kind of a fairly easy process to get people on board?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. For the most part, everyone here in Florida is really supportive of protecting the panther. I think some of the resistance that we get a little bit from is some of the hunters and ranchers who own cattle or cows on their ranches, which it has been documented that panthers sometimes like to predate on the smaller calves. So sometimes ranchers don't really like that aspect of the panther. But we have been really fortunate to work with so many ranchers that are so supportive of us trying to protect them, because ranchers actually care a lot about protecting the Florida Wildlife Corridor because it ultimately protects their way of life and the land that they have worked on for years. So it's a mutual relationship that we have.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we've spoken with big cats scientists down in Panama, and it's the ranchers are excited too sometimes to see the animals that are using their land. They had no idea in some cases that, you know, jaguars were using their land, and I imagine it's similar in Florida too when they see some of the animals that pass through.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really cool that you mentioned Panama because my family is actually from Panama. And so one day I would love to go down and actually camera trap jaguars. I think that would be awesome. Same thing is happening here in Florida.
I'll have to connect you with my friend Ricardo. He does great work down there. Okay, let's go back to Ontario. Bring in our crew in Ontario, see if they have another question.
What is the most dangerous situation you've ever been in?
Ooh, okay. So I think, you know, in my opinion, I think that the most dangerous part of my job is actually getting in a car and driving on the interstate to get to some of these places. I think getting in a car accident is actually more likely to happen than me getting bit by an alligator or running into, you know, a panther that wants to, you know, predate me. I don't think that's as likely to happen as me just being on the road. But I have been in some close encounters with animals like bears and alligators, and it's all about respecting your distance and knowing that this is their home and this is their territory, and I'm just a visitor in these places. So it's all about being aware of those animals there and just respecting them.
All right. California, I see someone waiting for us there.
Why in Florida is it called the panther?
So it's called the Florida panther just because, you know, all across the United States, we actually have other pumas. We have pumas in California, but the Florida panther is actually the last surviving big cat east of the Mississippi. So that's why we call it the Florida panther, because it's the one place left where they live.
All right. That's a fun question because we do hear mountain lion and cougar and puma and panther. So very cool question. And also a little bit sad too to know east of the Mississippi, they just kind of have this one stronghold left.
Yep. They're the last ones.
All right. Back to New Jersey. Mrs. Dottie's crew. Let's see if they have another question for us. Keeping our teachers on their toes by going randomly this time.
Do you know the population of bears?
You know, I do not know the specific number of individuals here of black bears in Florida, but I do know that we have we have big 3 distinct populations throughout the state. And some of the biggest populations are in Big Cypress Preserve near where I live and work. And then another really big population up near Ocala National Forest in Central Florida. So bears here are actually my favorite animal to get on the cameras just because they have so much personality and so much curiosity.
All right. Well, just a shout out again to YouTube. Keep some questions coming. I know we've got Mr. Hodge, his crew's hanging out in Quebec, so don't forget to add in a question for us. But let's go to Maine. Let's go back to Miss Whipple's crew for another question.
Hi, I'm Emmy, and my question is, how many panthers have you seen in person?
Ooh, this is my favorite question yet. So, panthers are so rare. A lot of people who live in Florida have actually never seen one. And I didn't get to see one until I started becoming a camera trapper. And I have seen one. In my entire 3 years working on this project, I've only seen one. And I think I was only able to see it because I actually had my dad with me in the field. And he saw it behind me when I was working on a camera trap that was all the way up in a tree. And I had just enough time to get down off my ladder, get my camera out, and take a picture of it. And it was still to this day one of the most magical experiences because I only had maybe 30 seconds to see this panther come out of the forest into a clearing and then into another patch of woods. And it did not care at all that we were there. It just kept walking, but it was so magical.
All right. That's pretty darn lucky. We connect with lots of scientists and researchers, and sometimes what they're studying, they do not get to see very often. So I think up until 2017, Ricardo down in Panama had been working around cats in that area in Costa Rica for well over a decade and still hadn't seen one. So they can be very elusive. And I think that's also a great adaptation that keeps them a little bit safer from us too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where do we need to go? Who haven't we visited twice yet? Oh, Miss Wallach's crew. I don't think we've been back for a follow-up.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Ava, and I'm wondering, what is your favorite fact about Florida panthers?
Hi, Ava. Well, let me think about that. I think my favorite fact about Florida panthers is just that they are this wide-ranging, wide-roaming animal that requires a lot of space. For me as a human and as an explorer, I like to go to all these different places and see new places too and fall in love with them. And so I think about this animal who needs so much room to roam but faces so many obstacles here in Florida. That's why I think the work that we do is so important, just so that this animal can continue to move and to hunt and to thrive. I think it's so important.
All right. Well, we do still have a couple minutes left. So if in your classroom you have another question for us, give me a big wave of the camera and I'll know to come back to your class to grab another question. I see lots of waving, so I think we're going to have to visit a few classrooms. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's start off in California and we'll work our way east.
What was the first animal you ever caught on camera?
Ooh, okay. Let me think. So back when I was an intern, I think the first animal I saw in a camera trap when I opened it up was probably a deer because they're very common here. But I think the first panther I saw was the most exciting thing ever because I had never seen, I don't even think I've seen really a picture of a Florida panther before I started working with the camera traps. And I just thought it was so cool that we have this big cat walking through swampy areas that so many people don't know about. So that's a really good question, thinking about all the way back then when I was an intern.
Yeah. Camera traps are just really cool science tools. We connect with OSA Conservation in Costa Rica regularly, and they put them up in the trees so they can catch the spider monkeys and the sloths and other creatures using that highway up in the forest canopy, which is really cool.
That is really cool. Yeah, I work on some cameras that we put up all the way up in pine trees and aimed straight down on the tree to get videos of black bears that are using the trees as scratching posts and marking posts. So that's always a lot of fun. I get to climb a 20-foot ladder and see all these really funny videos of black bears scratching their backs.
Very cool. Let's jump to New Jersey. Bring them back in. I think I saw some waving. Yep, I think I was right.
What college did you go to?
So for my undergrad, I went to Florida State University up in Tallahassee, Florida. And then right after that, I did my graduate work at University of Miami in Miami, Florida. And that's where I did the exploration science program and learned all about the camera traps. But at Florida State University, that's where I got all my background knowledge on environmental science and biology and cool things like that.
All right, back to Ontario. Do you have a question for us?
Does anyone have a question?
No pressure.
Colton? No?
Hello, we have no questions.
Hayden?
That's okay. We can check in one more time if there's time near the end. All right. Can't leave out Miss Whipple's crew. They're waving.
Wait, are we unmuted? Okay.
We got that.
Hi, I'm Simone. My question is, what's the panther's typical diet?
So the panthers like to eat a lot of small mammals. They eat mostly white-tailed deer, but they'll also eat things like the invasive hogs that we have here in Florida, and other small rodents like rabbits and things like that. They love to hunt, and they hunt at night. I think we've seen on the camera only a few times a panther that actually looked like it was actively hunting something. So it's really cool when we get to see that on the cameras.
All right, Miss Wallach's crew.
Hi, my name's Emma, and how can we help? How can we as kids help Florida panthers?
That is such an important question. I think for you as kids in school, wherever you are, I think that it's just really important to fall in love with the places near your own home. Like I said, places that are in your own backyard, parks that are near where you live. Really get to know those places and fall in love with them. And you will ultimately care enough to try and protect those places. But when it comes to Florida and the Florida panther, if you're really interested and care a lot about protecting the panther, then my best advice would be to tell your family, tell all your friends about what you learned today, what all the pictures that you saw, and just tell them how important it is to protect endangered species like panthers. And yeah, just become an exploring conservationist yourself. You can do that as a kid right now.
All right, great advice for our future scientists, conservationists, researchers, explorers. Very cool. Looks like a change of heart in Ontario.
Hi, I'm in Ontario.
What is the best animal picture you've had?
What's your favorite?
My favorite picture, I wish it was in this presentation. I didn't put it in there, but we have gotten a picture of a Florida panther leaping midair over this log that is in an area where it seasonally floods. So in order for the panther to get from one side of the trail to the next, it actually has to jump over this log and jump over the water. And we've gotten a picture of this panther just leaping, and it really just shows you how powerful they are and how dynamic they are in this dynamic environment. And I think that's my favorite picture, just because I remember, you know, working really hard setting that camera up with my colleague Carlton Ward and just crossing our fingers, hoping that we got something. And when we opened that picture, you just saw the panther's eyes staring right into the camera. It was awesome. That's my favorite.
All right, a lot of guesswork, but educated guessing, because you can look for trails and dry spots, but it must be so rewarding to collect. Are you able to collect some of them kind of in real time, sent to your phone, or are they most of them kind of get back out there and retrieve the cards?
Yeah, so the more advanced setups that we have that have the actual fancy cameras and video cameras inside them, I only get to see what we get when I show up to the site. And I usually leave the cameras out there for 2 weeks at a time. So I'll show up every other week. But at some of our sites, we actually do have little mini trail cameras that have a wireless option to where anything that passes through the area, I get a notification on my phone and I can see it through an app. We use this a lot for when we know the bears are really active. So if I get a notification and say that a bear had knocked down our camera, I know to go out there and fix things.
All right. I want to start off with a big shout out to all the classrooms who joined us today. Thank you for the great questions. Thank you for playing Kahoot with us today. Always a lot of fun. In fact, let's bring a few of those in right now and give them a chance to give a big wave there. Let's bring a few groups in. There they are. Hey, everyone. Awesome to share with you today, as always. And Malia, a huge shout out to you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for the great stories, the great images, and of course, the great conservation work.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I think this was the most fun I've ever had on a classroom presentation. It's been awesome.
All right. Excellent. Well, we'll bring them in one more time just to let them sign off. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.